In the vast and ancient tapestry of Chinese civilization, one idea stands out as the cornerstone of political philosophy: moral authority and the very legitimacy of emperors. The mandate of heaven. This profound concept, born during the early Zhou dynasty around 1046 BC, shaped the destiny of China for more than 3,000 years. It was not simply a political theory. It was a divine moral code that connected heaven, earth, and humankind in one harmonious order. According to the mandate of heaven, the right to rule was not inherited automatically, nor was it claimed through sheer power or bloodline. Instead, it was granted by heaven, the supreme cosmic force that governed the universe, to only those rulers who demonstrated virtue, wisdom, and benevolence. If a ruler became corrupt, unjust, or cruel, heaven would withdraw its mandate and transfer it to another worthy leader. In this way, the mandate of heaven became both a divine blessing and a moral warning, a philosophy that held emperors accountable to a higher moral standard. The story begins with the Zhou rulers who overthrew the Shang dynasty. The Zhou justified their conquest by claiming that the Shang kings had lost heaven's favor because they had become immoral, oppressive, and arrogant. The Zhou declared that heaven had chosen them to bring order and virtue back to the world. This justification not only established the Zhou's legitimacy, but also introduced a new pattern of political reasoning that would echo through every dynasty that followed. The mandate of heaven was built on 4 core principles. First, heaven grants the emperor the right to rule. Second, there can be only one legitimate ruler under heaven at any given time. Third, the ruler's virtue determines whether he maintains this right. And fourth, if a ruler fails in his duties or becomes unjust, heaven will withdraw the mandate, allowing others to claim it. This belief provided a divine explanation for political change. Natural disasters, famines, floods, rebellions, or invasions were not random. They were signs that heaven had turned its face away from the ruling dynasty. Thus, moral behavior was not merely personal, it was cosmic. The emperor was called the Son of Heaven, a sacred title that came with immense responsibility. His role was to maintain harmony between heaven and earth, to ensure prosperity for his people, and to govern with righteousness and compassion. The emperor's conduct affected not only the fate of his dynasty, but the very balance of nature itself. If he ruled well, the heavens smiled. The weather was favorable, harvests were abundant, and peace prevailed. But if he failed, heaven's anger manifested in earthquakes, floods, and rebellions. In this way, politics and nature were woven together through a spiritual thread. The mandate of heaven, however, was never a guarantee of eternal power. It was conditional, fragile, and always at risk. History became a cycle, a repeating pattern of rise, glory, decline, and collapse, what historians later called the dynastic cycle. A new dynasty would rise, the power claiming to have received the mandate after the previous one lost it through corruption or tyranny. In the beginning, rulers were virtuous, the government efficient, and the people content. Over time, greed, corruption, and extravagance would grow. Natural disasters or social unrest would follow, signaling heaven's displeasure. Finally, rebellions would erupt. The old dynasty would fall, and a new one would emerge, claiming once again that heaven had chosen them. This cycle explained the rhythm of Chinese history for thousands of years, from the Zhou to the Qin, from the Han to the Temps, from the Ming to the Qing. Every emperor knew that his throne stood not on a foundation of power, but on the fragile trust of heaven and the people. Unlike the European concept of the defined right of kings, which declared that monarchs ruled by God's will and could not be questioned, the mandate of heaven introduced accountability. It gave the people, scholars, and even rival rulers the moral right to rebel against a tyrant. For rebellion was not a sin, it was a sign that heaven's will had changed. This philosophy blended morality, religion, and politics in a way unique to Chinese civilization. It was deeply tied to Confucian ideals, emphasizing virtue, filial piety, and moral leadership. Confucius himself taught that rulers must govern not through fear but through moral example, for only a virtuous ruler could inspire virtue in his people. The mandate of heaven thus became the foundation for Confucian political ethics, shaping governance, education, and law throughout the empire. The emperor's duty was not merely to rule, but to cultivate virtues, to perform rituals, honor ancestors, care for the poor, and ensure social order. In this sacred duty, his moral strength was believed to align the cosmos. Even in times of crisis, emperors would publicly pray, fast, and confess their faults before heaven, acknowledging that misfortune might be the result of their personal failings. The mandate of heaven was therefore not only a theory of rule, but a philosophy of self-reflection and humility. Throughout Chinese history, rulers and rebels alike invoked this concept to justify their actions. When the Qin Emperor unified China into 21 BC, he claimed heaven's mandate as proof of his divine right to rule all under heaven. When the Han overthrew the Qin, they too claimed the mandate, arguing that the Qin had lost it through cruelty and excess. Centuries later, during the collapse of the Ming Dynasty, peasant rebels and Manchu leaders alike declared that the Ming had lost heaven's favor through corruption and myth, paving the way for the Qing. The concept transcended time. Each ruler sought to demonstrate his virtue through deeds that benefited the people, building irrigation systems, stabilizing taxes, promoting justice, and maintaining peace. Success in these acts reaffirmed the mandate, while failure threatened to take it away. The mandate of heaven also influenced art, literature, and philosophy. Poets and historians used it to explain the moral lessons of history, reminding future generations that power is fleeting and virtue eternal. In visual arts, emperors were often depicted under symbols of celestial harmony: dragons, suns, and clouds, emphasizing their connection with heaven's favor. Philosophically, the idea inspired debates on moral legitimacy and human nature. Thinkers like Mencius argued that the people-est happiness and trust were the true measure of heaven-est approval, famously declaring that the people are of supreme importance. The ruler is the least. This sentiment made the mandate of heaven not only a religious concept, but an early form of political philosophy grounded in moral democracy. In essence, heaven's mandate was the voice of the people, and their suffering was a signal that the ruler had failed. Even as China entered the modern era and the last imperial dynasty fell in 1911, echoes of this ancient belief remain. Revolutionary leaders like Sun Yat-sen invoked the moral logic of the mandate when they argued that the Qing had lost heaven's favor by failing to modernize and protect the people. In this way, the mandate of heaven transformed into a symbol of moral legitimacy and political performance that still resonates in Chinese political thought today. The modern Chinese idea that government must serve the people, maintain stability, and deliver prosperity reflects this ancient moral expectation that rulers must earn legitimacy through good governance. The mandate of heaven continues to influence how leadership is judged, not by divine birthright, but by the ability to maintain harmony and order. It remains one of humanity's most remarkable political ideas. A belief that the universe itself participates in the moral evaluation of kings. It teaches that authority must always be balanced with virtue, and that when power strays from morality, collapse is inevitable. From the Zhou kings who first proclaimed it, to the philosophers who refined it, to the emperors who trembled under its weight, the mandate of heaven became both a crown and a burden. The sacred trust between ruler, people, and the cosmos. It reminds us even today that leadership is never absolute, that true power is earned through justice and compassion, and that when leaders forget their duty to serve, heaven or history itself will rise to judge them.